Hello, it's Tom. I'm back. So, about a week or so ago, I asked you people for your questions, and you were very kind in that you asked some. So, it's always a little bit worrying when you put out that sort of request, right? There's always like a little bit of anxiety where you're like, can you ask me questions, please? And you just hope that you do get some. But you lovely people have left me some lovely questions. So in this video, I'm going to go through them all and I'm going to answer them all. And it's going to be a good time, I hope. This might end up being very rambly. Like, I like to ramble. I don't really get a chance to do that much nowadays. I don't know when I'm next going to do one of these sort of things. So this might end up being a long one. If this is like an hour, then it's an hour. I'm just going to roll with it. I'm not going to stress too much about that. So I think I'll add in chapters. So if you're just interested in finding out the answer to your questions, then just go through the chapters and hopefully it's quite obvious which one is your question. If not though, then just strap in, I suppose, because it's going to be a long one. I've got a drink. I wasn't too sure what to get for a drink. I was like, should I have a healthier sort of drink, something like that? Or should I just have some alcohol? So the answer to that question for me was, let's just have both. So I've got a green tea that's still too hot to drink. And I've got a beer. I've gone with a Brooklyn Brewery Stonewall Inn IPA, which I've had before and it's okay. Oh, that is okay, as usual. Okay, anyway, let's not start too rambly. I'll have plenty of time to ramble. Let's get into these questions. So the first question I have been asked is from Artificial Orange Studios, and they ask, what's your favorite episode of The Simpsons? I knew this one was coming, right? It's such a great question. It's such an interesting one. You can't talk about The Simpsons on the internet without at some point having the conversation about what's the best one. There's been like hundreds and hundreds of these things, so many different seasons, so many great episodes. At some point I was going to have to talk about this. And I think the somewhat disappointing answer, but don't go away yet, I do have an answer, but the somewhat disappointing answer is that I don't think I really have one. Like, I just don't think there's one clear episode that I can turn around and say, yes, that is my favorite one. That is definitely the best one. When I was younger, I had that. When I was like a teenager and I was watching the box sets, I had a favorite episode, and then that episode changed to a different episode, and then I came back to the original episode. But I think over time, they've just become like mush in my brain, almost. There's just so much content. There's so many episodes. I watched it for so many years. It's kind of hard to separate. Like, for me, it's like all these small little really funny moments that stick with me rather than individual episodes. But that's not to say I'm not going to talk about my favorite episodes, because upon reading this question, I was like, well, maybe I can't pick just one, but I can pick some. I can pick a list of episodes. So let me just bring it up here, because what I have done is that I've gone through a list of all the episodes. Where did I save that? I thought it was here. Is it not here? Oh, I can't find it now. It must be there. Oh no, here it is. Found it. So what I've done is that I went through the list of all the episodes. I say all the episodes, like, I don't need to go beyond season 10 when it comes to my favorite episodes. I know my favorite episodes will be Golden Age episodes. I'm not thinking, oh, there's a diamond in the rough in season 22. Like, no, I'm good. So I went through the list on Wikipedia, and I just pulled out the ones that I think are my favorites, the ones that stood out to me, the ones that if I was to pick a favorite, it'd be one of these. So I've actually organically pulled out 10. So these are not going to be in order of how much I like them, but these are the episodes in order that they released when going through the list that stood out to me as being my favorite. So, okay, here we go. So from season 1, Moaning Lisa. Season 2, Itchy and Scratchy and Marge. Season 2, Homer versus Lisa and the Eighth Commandment. Season 3, Flaming Moe's. Season 3, Homer at the Bat. Season 4, Treehouse of Horror 3. Season 4, Homer's Triple Bypass. Season 5, Homer the Vigilante. Season 6, And Maggie Makes Free. and season 6, A Star Is Burnt. Something that was really surprising to me was I didn't pick any season 7 episodes. Like, I would say season 7 is one of the best seasons, but when I actually looked at the list of season 7 episodes, none of them quite stood out as being my favorite. It's like consistently great, but none of them were like enough to really stand out on their own. Yeah, that ended up being my list. I think a lot of my list is just built of episodes that have these really funny moments that stuck with me. So when I was saying about how when I was younger I had a favorite episode, that episode was Home of the Vigilante. Like when I was like 14, 15, watching season 5 in my room, like every night. Like before I had YouTube on my phone or my laptop, I would just watch Simpsons box sets to go to sleep. I would just fall asleep to those. So Home of the Vigilante was my favorite then. Then as I got older, I was like, no, I want that more emotional episode. So that's when And Maggie Makes Free became my favorite one, because I had some really funny bits, and also I had that emotional ending with Do It For Her. And then as I got older again, I was like, I like the emotional parts of The Simpsons, right? I like that stuff, but I watch it because it's a funny show. Like, ultimately, I like The Simpsons because it's a funny show that I enjoy. I don't really watch it for that emotional angle. I like that angle, but that's always going to be secondary to me to the humor. So that's when Home of the Vigilante became my favorite again. But again, I wouldn't really call it my favorite at this point in time. So that's kind of my list. So it's a bit of a mix between stuff that just really makes me laugh, but for most of it, it's just funny things, like episodes with funny bits, like Homer at the Bat, of course. And then Moaning Lisa is in there as well because I really like in terms of the emotional and the character-based part of The Simpsons that you got in some of those earlier seasons. For me, I think Moaning Lisa is the best example of that. Like, a lot of people look at Lisa's Substitute, and that is a great episode, but I think Moaning Lisa is better with the way that plays out with Marge and Lisa, and the fact that a lot of it's actually about Marge and not Lisa. I think that's really cool. So yeah, to me, that's like the most emotional one. And then, yeah, I won't go through all of these, but yeah, that's my list. Moaning Lisa, Itchy and Scratchy and Marge, Homer versus Lisa and the Eighth Commandment, Flaming Moe's, Homer at the Bat, Treehouse of Horror 3, Homer's Triple Bypass, Homer the Vigilante, and Maggie Makes Free, and A Star Is Burnt. And mostly because I find those episodes the funniest. Yeah, I couldn't quite pick a favorite, but hopefully that answers your question. Those are my top 10. I would need to go back and watch all of them again to be sure of that list. Like, this is just me looking at episode names and being like, yeah, those ones. Those are the ones that really stand out. If I actually went through them properly, it might look a bit different, but that's quite a task. So maybe one day, but probably not anytime soon. But thank you for the question. Okay, next up is Gamer Gabe, and they ask, or they say, I should say, I know you're in the middle of your Simpsons retrospective series, but I was wondering what other kind of games you'd want to cover in the future. I'm also curious if you would ever do a Spider-Man Web of Shadows / Shattered Dimensions DS retrospective video, because your Let's Plays on those games was how I found your channel. Well, first of all, thank you very much for that. If you found my channel due to those Let's Plays, then you've probably been around for a while. I'm pretty sure I do recognize your name. So thank you for that. That's extremely flattering. For those who don't know, I was on YouTube for a long time, doing Let's Plays and reviews and stuff, and then I disappeared for a long time, and then I've come back. So anyone who's still around from when I used to do YouTube, that's really awesome. I'm making some assumptions here that might be wrong, but either way, thank you very much. And yeah, it's a really interesting question. Really, I shouldn't have any ideas about the future in terms of this series and in terms of what I'm going to do, because ranking every Simpsons game is not even halfway done. And it's August now, and I would have been doing it for like a year in a couple of months, and it's probably going to take at least another year to finish it. So in terms of what's next, I've got like a year to think about it. So really, I shouldn't spend any time on it, but the reality is, yes, I've absolutely thought about it, and there are 2 series that I think I would want to do now. Well, there's basically 3 ideas, right? One of them, let's just start off, is I would like to cover more games related to The Simpsons or something, right? Like, I would like to do a video on the Futurama game. That would just be interesting. It's related to The Simpsons. I'm interested in it. I think it would be cool to take a look at that. And even just like the Family Guy PS2 game, like what the hell's going on with that? I've never played it. I'd be interested in giving that a go and giving it that type of review that I've been doing. The problem with that is that without the context and without the framing of ranking every blank game, I'm not too sure how I would go about doing that video. I guess really they would then just be retrospectives, but to me, one thing I really like about doing ranking every Simpsons game is that it has this framework, that it has this framing, that it has a real reason to exist, and it's a complete set of work. It's me going through every single Simpsons game and every single version of every single Simpsons game. And that's what ties it together, and that's what made me interested in doing the series. So if I remove that element, then I'm just like a standard typical retrospective game guy. And I'm not sure if I'll be into that. So that doesn't mean never say never for that stuff. I would really like to cover more cartoon sort of games and definitely stuff that are somewhat related to The Simpsons. I just need to figure out in my head what that would look like if it would just be a one-off on Futurama or something. But in terms of the other two series, they would be, if I did another ranking every blank game series, the first one would be James Bond. I think that's quite an obvious one if you know me. So I did a podcast with fellow YouTuber Mark Luck called Bond Revisited, and we went through and reviewed scene by scene every single Bond film in that podcast, and it made me a bigger James Bond fan than when I started. I've always been a James Bond fan, but now I'm quite a big James Bond fan. And a lot of the James Bond video games I've played, like I've put a lot of time into. I own most of them already. I grew up playing all of these games, even more than The Simpsons, I would say. So part of the reasons why I chose The Simpsons for the ranking series is because I'm passionate and very interested in The Simpsons. So for me, James Bond, I am also passionate and very interested in that series. So it would make sense that that would be the next one. My only concern would be those first few games are a little bit confusing. So before I would do that, I would have to try and figure out how do I cover all these weird games that came out in the 80s, especially because that's how the series is going to have to begin, because I go in chronological order. So there's some questions there. But the other series I would want to cover is actually, funnily enough, Spider-Man. I have this like secret passion for Spider-Man games that I guess somewhat comes across on my channel because I do dip into Spider-Man from time to time. But I'm not a big comic book guy, but there's always been something about the Spider-Man video games I've really liked. I mean, ever since Spider-Man 2 back on the PS2, where I spent a summer just playing that game, and it was awesome. I now own like a ton of Spider-Man games. Like, I think I own every Xbox 360 Spider-Man game. I think there was like 7 or 8 of them. And I always keep up with Spider-Man. And that's part of the reasons why I did those Let's Plays back in the day, because I care a lot about the Spider-Man game. So for me, the passion is really there, and I think that would be super interesting to go through the Spider-Man game. I think there is a really big history there. So it would be interesting to go through them. The reason why I wouldn't do Spider-Man is because there's so many games. Like, it would take me so long. Like, there's over 30 quite easily, and yeah, it would be tough. Like, doing these Simpsons games, I'm really enjoying it, but it's a lot of games. Like, it takes a lot of commitment. So the idea of doing this again, but doing a series where there's like 10 more games to cover, that's quite intimidating. So the thing that puts me off doing Spider-Man is that I would want to cover them all, but to do that would be crazy. That could take over, that could be like a 3 years. Like, that could take me 3 years to do that project. So I would really like to do it, but I would have to find a way to not make it take 3 years. I don't know. As I said, there's like a lot of questions for me to answer here. A lot of things for me to figure out in terms of what would be next. I've got kind of concerns and things I need to figure out with all of this stuff. But those would be the 3 kind of ideas that I've got now. In a year's time, that might completely change. But for me, it would be one-offs related to The Simpsons, or at least trying to find a way to do retrospectives that is outside of a ranking series, or sticking with the ranking series and doing James Bond or doing Spider-Man. Those would be the 3 ideas I currently have. So it's a maybe, I suppose. It would be cool to do. But yeah, thank you for the question. Next up, we have Man of Trash, who has 3 questions. The first is, do you have any hobbies? I'm not really a big hobby guy. I don't like saying that because it makes me sound quite boring. And I guess I am quite boring in reality. But I don't have any like very specific hobbies. I think in terms of hobbies, this is my hobby. Like making YouTube videos and doing this stuff, this is my main hobby. It's something that takes skills, it's something that takes a lot of time, it's something that I enjoy doing, it's something I do in my free time. Out of everything, I would say making these videos is my main hobby. It just takes so much time. Like, outside of work, I'm not always doing this, of course, but it does take a big chunk of time. So I think my main hobby is this. Outside of that, I can play guitar. I've never really kind of, properly, I've never tried to be a musician, but I started learning guitar when I was 16, and it's just something that I've done on and off. Again, very much as a hobby, as in just like something fun to do when I'm hanging out at home, so I can play guitar. I watch NFL. I support the Detroit Lions, if that counts as a hobby. Potentially it does. I go to the gym on and off. At the moment, I've been a bit rubbish with it, but, that's just the way it goes. Again, I think there's a lot of stuff that I kind of do, but I'm not sure if I would ever like classify them quite as hobbies. It's like, there's somebody I know at work who's like Warhammer, and they have a load of Warhammer stuff. And that's not my cup of tea at all, but obviously that's clearly something they're passionate about, and they spend a lot of time and obviously money on it as well. So that's a hobby, but I don't think I quite have that. Like there's video games, I play a lot of games, obviously. And I make this YouTube series, I make YouTube videos, but I think those are the main ones. I don't have any super kind of crazy interesting hobbies. I drink a lot of beer, if that counts. Maybe that counts? I don't know. Okay, next question. What are your thoughts on the current state of The Simpsons? So, I feel like this one is it's an interesting question, and it's definitely one I think about, because obviously I care a lot about the show. But at a certain point, it just becomes exhausting. Like, just the whole narrative with The Simpsons. Like, I'm not that invested that it's still going. I'm not that invested in the quality of the new episodes. At a certain point, it's like, the show can never be what it used to be. And I love what it used to be. So what it currently continues to be, I just separate it out and I don't really mind that much. So I don't feel that invested in the current state of the show. That being said, I would agree that with what's being said, that it is better than it was. I think somebody new took it over, like Al Jean stepped down as a showrunner, I think, and somebody else took his place. I can't remember the names off the top of my head, I'm afraid. But there was a shake-up over the last few seasons, so I'm only up to date with season 34, because I've only watched what's on Disney Plus here in the UK, so I've watched until the end of season 34. And definitely like season 33 and season 34 were better. But I think there's a long list of problems I have with modern Simpsons, and the current episodes fix some of those issues, but not all of those issues. So I would say in terms of The Simpsons being at its worst, my problems were the animation, very flat, very boring, very uninspired. The writing just being terrible. Like, I mean, I guess the first point with the writing is the jokes not being there and it just not being that funny, which is the big nail in the coffin, really. A comedy show that's not funny? Okay, great. Even if there's one or two jokes that might make me laugh, it just wasn't that funny. The third one just... The pacing was terrible of some of the episodes, where like they cram so many jokes in, they cram so many storylines in, that it just is just really unpleasant to watch. And sometimes, like, even if a joke is funny, it would just jump so quickly onto the next thing that it would give you no chance to actually enjoy it. So, like, the new episodes go some way to fix this. Oh, and also, another problem is that episodes are just boring. There are just a ton of episodes of Modern Simpsons that are just boring. Like, you pick a random one in 27, sure, it's a ton of jokes and whatever, fine, but it's boring. Like, it's just really uninteresting, the storylines and what happens. It's boring. So I think the modern episodes aren't quite as boring. I think they're paced a lot better, which makes them a lot more watchable. I think they've gone for a more grounded approach with the show, where it's less over-the-top wackiness, or some wackiness, but more grounded stories, or at least moving back in that direction. Like season 5 of the show, which is my favorite season, has Homer go to space, so I don't care that much about these being human character-driven stories, as long as they're interesting and funny. So they've taken some steps, but I would still say the animation and the direction is boring or just like really flat. Like that's one thing I really don't like about modern Simpsons, where they do this incredible couch seat or couch gag where they're doing all this really unique out there animation, and then you watch the actual episode and there's just nothing to it. Now, it's not that the original series or the original seasons had all this crazy animation, but just from a directing point of view, just from someone directing this and making it feel interesting to watch, they still put in the effort. And I feel like modern Simpsons just doesn't do that. And I still feel like even with this, they don't. So you go to two extremes. You'll have this really, really out there where they're trying to really hard to be creative and do something different. And then you have the other side, which is most of the show, where everything just looks super flat and boring. Where older Simpsons had a much better balance. So I think modern Simpsons, it's like watchable. There's some decent episodes. I think it's okay. I think it's decent. I'm not looking for modern Simpsons to be as good as old Simpsons. It's just a silly thing to watch. You hope it's good, but it's never going to be the same. It just can't be. But I'm not that interested. So I still check it out. I still watch it. I like that it's better. But it's not as funny as I would like. It's not as memorable as I would like. The animation's still not great, I don't think. So it's okay. I'm not that fussed if it's okay or bad anymore. But it kind of, it is what it is. Okay, so final question from Man of Trash is, if you could go on a romantic date with anyone from Springfield, who would it be? And why would you choose Mo Shizlak? I think I stumbled that. Sorry, Mo. Mo would be a good time. I'm worried he would smell, which would be an issue. And I think that would be an issue for a few characters. No offense to the captain. I think he would probably smell. Duffman would probably smell of duff, of beer. That's not going to be very good. You don't get the smells when watching the show. But you don't want to go on a smelly date. That's like the worst thing, right? You have to sit near someone and no, you don't want anything like that. In terms of who I would go on, I mean, there's so many characters that I feel like anyone that I would pick is a disservice to somebody else. Mo would be interesting, but I think Mo would, outside of the smell thing, Mo would just also be a bit depressing. It would also be a little bit just sad. You would just be like, Mo, come on, no, stop it. Or he just goes off on a weird tangent, but it would still be nice. This sounds weird. I think Hans Moleman would be a good one. I think he would just be nice, right? He would also be a bit depressing, but I think he would just be nice. There's no judgment with a Hans Moleman. You could probably just be yourself. He would be himself. Get him out of his shell. Be like, it's going to be all right, Moleman. Here's a free drink. And even if it does go terribly and something horrible happens, it's probably going to be quite funny anyway. Because it usually is. Even in the most tragic, awful situations with Hans Moleman, it's still kind of funny. That's part of his charm. So either you just have a nice time or you get a few laughs. So I'm going to go Hans Moleman on that one, I think. It might be depressing, but it also might be a good time. Okay, next up, I have two questions that I think I want to answer at the same time. So both of these come from the same person. I think it's Azozoz. Apology if I'm saying that wrong. And they ask, do you consider making a Let's Play style video? And they also ask, will you do stream again? It's been a while since your last stream was Banjo-Kazooie. So I guess the reason why I'm answering these together is because I guess ultimately this is about content that I could make that I'm not currently making. So when I started to do this ranking series, to me, I had to go all in with it. I had to say, this is the main thing I'm doing. This is what I want to focus on. It's not going to be easy. It's going to take a ton of work. I knew that. And that's kind of why for the longest time I didn't do a scripted series, because I knew it would just overtake everything, and that's exactly what's happened. Like, when I want to work on videos, I need to spend my time on this because they spend so much time. Like, that process of making a Let's Play compared to making a scripted video, it's like 10 times, maybe even more than that, in terms of the work that goes into it. Actually playing a game, recording it, looking up stuff about it, writing the script, editing, blah, 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 you know, all that sort of stuff. That is so much more time consuming for a scripted video. But I don't mind, because I really like making the videos. But it kind of means in terms of other types of content, it's like I don't really want to do that so much. Specifically in terms of Let's Plays, I used to do Let's Plays as my main thing back when I started YouTube, and I did that for many years. So when I stopped doing YouTube and then came back, I kind of was like, I don't want to do Let's Plays again. And the main reason for that is because I don't want to take a step backwards. Like, if I'm going to come back, there kind of needs to be a reason for it. Like, I wanted to do something different. So even though I jumped around a bit, I did a bit of streaming, I did a bit of speed running, I did the challenge videos, like I jumped around a bit, it was trying to find something new and different to do. So in terms of a Let's Play video, maybe, but I don't even know what games I would play for a Let's Play, right? Like, I just don't really have that much drive to make that type of content anymore. Like, I did it for years. If there was a particular game that I really wanted to do, maybe. But even then, like, when I was doing Let's Plays, I was jumping around so much in terms of the games that I was doing that I never really found my feet with like a genre or a type of game. Like, a lot of people just do Nintendo, but that's boring. But I wanted to kind of do Nintendo, but then I would sometimes do like Red Dead Redemption and stuff. Like, I was all over the place. So if I came back and did those again, I would have to pick for a certain type of game, but then what would that be? And there's just too many questions. So the most likely answer for the Let's Play stuff is probably not, because I just don't know what I would do. And I wouldn't really want to take the time out of making the ranking every Simpsons game videos. And also, like, part of the reasons why I did Let's Plays back in the day is because it was somewhat easier. Like, it was a way of getting content out there. It was a way of making videos. It was a way of actually making content and making a lot of it. Like, I used to really care about the upload schedule. I used to really care about making sure I was always uploading. And Let's Plays were perfect for that. You know, you record it for about, I don't know, 2 hours, and you've got like 6 episodes that you can schedule out. So I cared about that stuff a lot. So I've now moved away from that because it's stupid. It's just not helpful for anyone. But it then means like Let's Plays don't make as much sense anymore. So probably no on that. In terms of the streaming, I think that's a lot more interesting because I don't think I would ever go back to Twitch. Twitch is really difficult. Like, it's really difficult. You have to put yourself out there over and over again and just keep streaming, keep getting out there, keep talking to people, keep engaging, keep just having streams where no one shows up, but you gotta stream anyway because you have to grind it out. And that's really, really difficult. Like, that's really hard to do. So in terms of putting myself through that, I guess it probably wouldn't be 0 people at this stage, but even then, like, I don't want to do that grind. And one of the reasons why I stopped streaming is because I was like, well, I don't like that grind. I like doing stuff on YouTube because I can spend all this time on it, spend as much time as I want on a video, and then put it out there, and it does as well as it does. People are always going to watch it. Even if it's not many, like, people will check it out. There is some value to it. If I put a lot of time and effort into it, some people are going to like it. With this and Twitch, it just doesn't work like that. Like, sometimes you get a ton of people, and then next time you do the exact same type of stream, and it's the same kind of quality, but like people just don't show up, and it's just really tough. But that doesn't mean I would never stream again, because I have been thinking maybe I should just stream on YouTube. Like, don't overthink it, just pick a game, stream on my YouTube channel, and then just have people hang out. To me, that sounds like a good time. So I think at some point in the future I will stream, but if I do, it will be on YouTube. And it'll probably be a Simpsons game, like, right? That just makes sense. I'm kind of curious to go back to Bart versus the Space Mutants and see if I can actually beat the NES version legit. That would be really, really cool to do, because I had to use a lives cheat to do it for the review. So it'd be cool to do that, and it'd be cool to go back and revisit some of those Space Mutants ports in a stream. So I think at some point I would really like to do that. I don't know when. I'm going to have to be in the right mood for it. Probably not while it's still bloody hot in the summer, to be honest. But yeah, I think at some point in the future I'll stream on YouTube. Not worry about schedule, not worried about having to grind it out. Just give the streaming a go, see how it goes down, and then maybe do semi-regular streams of different games. I don't know, we'll see. But yes, I think at some point I will do that. That will be fun, even if it's just a one-off. So thank you for your questions. Okay, so next question is from Max Morkins. Howdy, Tom. Howdy, Max. I'm always curious how American media informs the thoughts and opinions of those outside the US. So my question is there anything you have learned about the US from its content set there that you have been surprised is actually true, or at least somewhat accurate? And inversely, is there anything you were surprised to learn is total fiction and just how certain things are portrayed in media? With The Simpsons, for example, it walks such a thin line in the uncanny valley between accurate portrayal of suburban life, of a nuclear American family, and total self-aware farce exaggerated at its own expense. P.S. I have no idea if QAs are outdated, but I still love them. Keep up the good work, Max. Well, always good to see your name, Max. Always good to have you around. I appreciate the question. It's a bit of an out there one. I don't know if I'm going to be able to give you a very good answer, but I'll try. I mean, one thing that's messed things up with the media in the US, right, is like, I guess it depends what you talk about media, because growing up, I watched a lot of American stuff, like I think everyone did, where you would go to the cinema and you would watch American films, and a lot of the bands you would hear on the radio were American, and even the TV shows, people were watching Friends or whatever, right? Like it was very much informed by that. But kind of nowadays with the internet and social media, yada yada yada, it's all kind of blurred in a way where they're quite hard to separate the idea of media and not. So I think one of the things that stood out to me about America that I'm not too sure if I really got from TV shows and stuff is just like how extreme America is. Like there is such a diversity in that country. There is such a range of lifestyles and people, and just it's such a huge country with so many people that I'm not sure if the media really portrays it in, or I don't even know if it can portray it, because it's such a diverse, massive place with so many different types of people living so many different lives. I guess part of the reason why I say this is because I've gone to America 4 times. One of those times was going to LA, and that was quite shocking going to LA, to be honest, because in LA you saw like both sides of this extreme coin, where one side is absolute luxury, like you had the Staples Center and stuff, these giant boards, and like, yeah, just lots of wealth and these giant buildings and stadiums and stuff, and it was insane, and these really fancy hotels. And then on the other side was just like absolute poverty, people like crazy people on the street who couldn't like cope and were homeless. And I think that these kind of extremes is something that I don't think you quite get in American media, where like the idea of, say, let's just say poverty, if you take a look at The Simpsons, they're not really that poor. Like when it comes down to it, like they're okay. Like a lot of the poverty I feel like in America media is like lower middle class. It's like middle class people at the bottom end who are struggling. Maybe you get some working class. I'm not saying there isn't. I'm just going off what I can think of at the moment. But yeah, I feel like it's that. I feel like American media doesn't really portray just how different people are across that country. Like it is insane. It is so many different types of people. It's insane they only have 2 real political parties. Like that makes no sense. But anyway, let's not go into politics. But yeah, that was surprising. I think the other end of it, and it's not quite as insightful, I don't think, in terms of what was like surprising on TV and turned out to be true, it's just like the size of their houses. Like Americans they like to take up a lot of space. They build these big areas, they build their houses really far apart, these giant roads, like insanely giant roads, insanely big houses. They love their space. That's something you see in the media. And then when I went there, I was like, oh my God, that's crazy. Like, as an English person who lives in small houses or like relatively small places and smaller roads, the fact that Americans have just built up so much space is kind of insane. And that was kind of surprising to actually see in person. They're not the only ones like that. I've visited other countries where they kind of build it out more, especially here in England. So it's probably more of an English thing than anything and just a European thing due to our history, I suppose. But yeah, Americans like to take up space. So hopefully that's what you were looking for. I don't think I'm the most qualified to give a really good answer for that, Max, but hopefully that's helped you out a little bit. So yeah, thank you for the question. All right, next up in the list is Ringtail. I haven't been reading the numbers out, by the way. I'm assuming people don't care about the numbers in their names. It says here Ringtail 99, and you have a Paper Mario icon, so you're A-okay in my book. Pretty awesome person. I love Paper Mario. But yeah, it says the numbers. I don't really read the numbers, but anyway, Ringtail. They have 3 questions, and the first question is, what Simpsons game are you looking most forward to? Now, I'm assuming, and I apologize if this is wrong, that you're asking out of the games that I haven't reviewed yet for the Ranking Every Simpsons Games video, or series, sorry, which one am I most looking forward to reviewing? And I had to think about this, and I think my answer would be Tapped Out, The Simpsons Tapped Out. Because I remember at the time being a little bit disappointed by it, but I think at the time I was just burnt out by all these tapper, fill up the bars, buy the currency, time stuff. Where everything was just, felt like it was milking your money, which is still true. But I used to mobile game a little bit, and now I don't anymore. But I definitely played a lot of Tapped Out. So I'm really and I think I did like it. I just think I was burnt out by the way the monetization works on mobile games. And I think I was just burnt out by all of that. I just wanted to play Doodle Jump. That was my mobile game. That was a fantastic game. I loved that game. But The Simpsons Tapped Out, I think, was actually quite good from what I remember. It was just, yeah, I was just burnt out by the whole mobile gaming stuff and how that worked. So the fact that it's also still running in 2024 is kind of insane. Like, it makes sense in a lot of ways. It probably is quite cheap to run that game. But still, like, wow, it's still there. So I'm actually really, really interested to go and replay that and give it another go. And just get to experience it again, because I think I'm going to have a really great time. They've chucked that game full of so many different Simpsons references, so many different Simpsons stuff is in that game, like more than any other game ever for The Simpsons. That I think the idea of and the concept of it, building your own Springfield is really cool. And I think I'm going to be able to take it for what it is rather than what it isn't nowadays, because it's so old and I can just install it and give it a go. So I'm actually really looking forward to that. I think that's going to be really cool. Second to that would be The Simpsons skateboarding, just because I have a feeling like I never see anyone really play more than half an hour or an hour of that game, which is true for most Simpsons games, by the way. Part of the reasons why I wanted to do this ranking series is because people just don't beat these games. People talk about them without ever actually beating them. So I was like, well, no, I'm beating them. And also I'm going to play all the ports because nobody does it. They play it for half an hour, say that's a load of rubbish, and then there you go, covered, done. So I'm really curious to see like what does level like 5 of The Simpsons skateboarding look like? Is it actually going to be as bad as people say? People say it's one of the worst video games of all time. So I'm super curious to actually play that properly. So Tapped Out is number 1, but I'm also very curious to actually give skateboarding a proper go. It might be awful. It might be truly, truly awful. I might scream. I might have a really bad time, but I'm very curious about that one. So the next question is second favorite Simpsons episode and why. I think I've already covered that. There was the list that I said before, which is my like favorite 10 episodes. So it would be one of those. And then the last question and least favorite and why. So I haven't talked about this. And this was another one where I had to think about it a lot because ultimately like there's a lot of reasons why something can be bad, and there's a lot of reasons why Simpsons episodes are bad. Some of those are for the reasons I've already talked about with newer Simpsons. Sometimes they're just really boring. Sometimes they're just not funny. Sometimes the stories are just nonsense, and sometimes they're just paced awfully. But it doesn't really like scream least favorite to me. It's like I'm just not gonna watch it. So in terms of the quality, I think the quality, and in terms of like the worst episode, it probably is one of those. But really, I just don't care enough about that content and those episodes to say that's my least favorite. The most boring one is probably the worst episode, but I couldn't call it my least favorite because I just don't care. Like, I just don't care. So then it comes down to, I think, offensive episodes, right? Like some people, like not as in offensive as in like, oh, you know, that sort of offense, but as in offensive to fans. And that's where your Lisa Gaga episode comes in. And that's where your Principal and the Pauper episode comes in. I hope that's the name of that episode. You know, where Skinner isn't really Skinner. Where people hate those episodes because they're the most offensive to them as fans. I don't really care that much, again, about that. I don't dislike the Skinner episode. I think it's silly. But I think it's also funny. So I give it a pass because, again, it's a comedy. The number one thing is to be funny. And I think it's got some funny jokes in that episode. And Lisa and Lady Gaga, I just don't care. Okay, sure, they did a Lady Gaga episode. Of course they did. Who cares? So I think my least favorite is the one I always skip, and it's from season 8, and it's My Sister, My Sitter, which is the episode where Lisa babysits Bart, and Bart just is just a little brat, and it leads to a lot of stuff happening where he gets injured, and then Lisa is out on the beach and everyone sees her, and it's quite nasty. And again, for me, I think it's the worst one because it's so mean-spirited and nasty. Like, it just is just a horrible episode to watch. It's just painful. Like, I think the idea of it is fine. Lisa gets put in charge and Bart doesn't like that. But the fact that it goes with Bart genuinely getting injured, and then the way Lisa is trying to help, and just because she's 8, like just gets it all messed up. It's just really, really unpleasant. I really don't like that episode. It's an episode I always skip when watching season 8. I think some of this is because when I was younger, it hit me really hard as well. Like the idea of getting in trouble in the way Lisa did. And to be fair, she doesn't get massively in trouble, but the anxiety that comes with trying to do your best, somebody just kind of messing around, getting legitimately injured, you trying your best to help that person, only to then get like publicly embarrassed and humiliated. It's awful. It's really awful, and I think they just go too far with it. Again, I like The Simpsons when it's funny. It's not really that funny. And it's just really mean-spirited, and it's like an ugly, ugly episode. So I think there's technically a lot worse episodes. There's probably even not as funny episodes. From watching that episode as a kid, I have a really hard time watching it again nowadays because it's just so unpleasant. So yeah, My Sitter, season 8, that's my least favorite. Alright, we've got 3 questions from Dr. Pompidou. So, first one, how do you watch content these days? Oh, I don't think it's changed massively in the last few years. So I'm one of the generation who just doesn't have a TV license. If you don't know what that is, in the UK, if you want to watch live television, you need to buy a TV license, and that money is used to fund the BBC. But ever since I went to uni, we didn't have one, and I've never had one. So I'm part of that generation. So I think nowadays it is all streaming, ultimately. So in terms of YouTube, that's kind of the same, right? I watch YouTube a ton. I have YouTube Premium. I know people are probably booing that I have YouTube Premium. But it's just one of those where it's like, I use YouTube enough that it's worth it. Like, it's just, I use it all the time. I watch YouTube every day. Like, I go to sleep with a YouTube video on every night. Like, to me, I'm happy to pay for it just to make that a smoother experience. So yeah, I watch a ton of stuff on YouTube. Then with the streaming services, I bounce around a lot. So for about the last 3 or 4 years, I kind of jump between them. So there's Netflix, Disney Plus, other ones, and I just have one at a time, basically. And I just jump between those. So recently I got Netflix for a month. I watched Godzilla -1. It was excellent. I really hate the algorithms with these with these streaming service nowadays. Like, I was trying to find stuff to watch on Netflix. I'm like, this algorithm sucks. Like, it's terrible. But not just the algorithm, but the way stuff is presented. None of it made me want to click it. Like, it gets so reduced down to nothing. Oh, God. Anyway, that's another rant. I'm not going to go on that. But I feel like nowadays streaming services are so bad at presenting content you want to watch. There's almost like an assumption with these subscription services that you have to click on something. So it just then comes down to what's the most appealing to you as you go through it. And how do, I guess, how do they like shove as much content in your face as possible for you to click on something, because you have to click on something, right? But for me, it's like, no, I'm just going to do something else. Disney Plus, if this is what you're showing me, Netflix, if this is what you're showing me, then forget you. I'm going to go do something else. Like, oh, terrible. So I jump between those. And then also on Amazon, I've started doing this thing about the last 2 years, maybe 3, where I now buy stuff on Prime Video. Like, stuff that I know I like, I'll buy it when it's in the sale. So I keep an eye on the sales on Amazon, and then I buy stuff. So I have, like, most seasons of Curb Your Enthusiasm, all seasons of Brooklyn Nine-Nine, Bob's Burgers. I actually bought every season of Star Trek The Next Generation, although I only watched one season, and then I hated the first episode of season 2 so much I stopped watching it. I think it was called The Child. It was terrible. And like even like Rick and Morty and stuff like that, and Futurama as well. Like, I've started waiting for stuff to go on sale, and then I buy it on Amazon Prime because I have it forever, because they can't take it away legally, I don't think. So I actually watch quite a bit of stuff there because I just own it and I don't have to worry about subscription services. Like, if I let them all run out, I would just go to Amazon Prime and stream some stuff. I mean, worst case scenario, I'll just get my DVDs out, but that's unlikely. But even then, yeah, so it's like a mix between stuff I bought on Amazon Prime, whatever streaming service I have at the time. At the moment, it's none because I just let my Disney Plus expire. And I don't think there's a good reason to get it again anytime soon, so we'll see how that goes. And like Channel 4 as well. Channel 4 is a pretty good site for watching stuff. And then also YouTube, I suppose. Like, there's quite a lot of stuff on YouTube. And there's other ways to watch things that I won't talk about here. Oh, I usually also have Crunchyroll. Because Crunchyroll is quite cheap, I usually like buy a year and then just leave it because it's very cheap compared to the other ones. So I'm not always watching anime on it, but it's like I usually always have it. And then there's other ways as well. So I've been watching Taskmaster New Zealand season 4 just before recording this, actually. And there's no clean way of watching it here. So I found my way. I found my way of doing it. But I won't say anything else. Anyway, moving on. Next question. What's your favorite gaming memory? So when I was thinking about my favorite gaming memory, a lot of them actually came down to like social stuff, right? Like when I first saw the question, I thought it'd be something like, oh, when I got the platinum in Bloodborne, or, you know, I played this one match of Call of Duty or Apex Legends and it was really cool and I did well. Like, I thought this memory stuff would actually be like an accomplishment I had in gaming, but when I thought about it, my favorite gaming memories are social stuff. So when I was in like year 6, I started going to my friend's house after school, and we would play Time Splitters, we would play Star Wars Battlefront 2, or those were the main two. We played other stuff, but those were the main two. So some of my favorite gaming memories is because I never did this before as well, right? Like, I never just went to a mate's house so casually and just played games. Like, my household just wasn't like that. Things were a little bit more strict. So this idea of just going to a mate's house and playing a game was just so cool. And it was so fun to do. Like, actually having someone who I could play games with like that, and to do it after school as this extra thing, it was amazing. It was so cool. So some of my favorite game memories of like are just doing that. Oh, Nightfire. Gotta say Nightfire. Nightfire was a big one too. So after school gaming with at my friend's house, also just like sleepovers, like just picking a game and playing it. Again, those were like the same games that I just listed, like Time Splitters. Time Splitters 2 and Future Perfect were the big ones. So playing those with friends was pretty amazing. And then I think I would also say Modern Warfare 2 was a big one. Because I don't think any game is going to be as big as Modern Warfare 2 was back in 2009. That was like everyone I knew got that game. Like everyone I knew got Modern Warfare 2. And there was just nothing else like it. Like the amount of people playing that game, the excitement for it. Like GTA 6 is going to come out, it's not going to compare. It's just not going to be the same thing. Things are just too segmented in terms of communities. And in a way that's good, because it means you get these really passionate communities and you can find people who really care about the same stuff you can. But in the same way, it doesn't like bring people together. Like a game doesn't come out and it brings people together in that same way. Maybe it does for some people, but I don't really experience that nowadays. Not in the same way anyway. Modern Warfare 2 just felt like it was a whole other level. Arguably GTA 5 eclipsed it or hit that level, but there was something special about Modern Warfare 2 when that came out and the excitement. It was pretty crazy. So I'd say one of those kind of social sort of events. Also, I had a ton of fun doing stuff with Mark Luck as well. Like doing the Left 4 Dead series was just a ton of fun. That was just a really cool thing to do, just playing that game. Ratchet and Clank, not so much. It was fun. It was just a bit long. But yeah, doing that sort of thing was really cool. So I think for me, it's one of those social things, which I don't really do anymore. Oh, and also Fall Guys. I have a really good gaming memory with Fall Guys, where me and a few of my friends played a drinking game, which I won't go over all the rules, but yeah, it was drinking Fall Guys, which Fall Guys was a really good game for drinking games, because you had a chance like in between rounds to drink, right? And that's the key to a good video game that you can drink to. You need logical points where you can stop and drink, which is why Mario Party is such a classic one. So we did that with Fall Guys and it was messy, but it was a ton of fun, especially because that was like the COVID year as well in 2020. So us just all jumping online, playing this new game that we're all really enjoying, and then making a drinking game out of it and just having it be this crazy night was really, really cool. So any of those, I think, just the social aspect, I think is the important part, really, in the end. Final question from Dr. Pompidou is, what's the most surprising game you've played? I don't really know about this one. I don't know if I've ever... Well, I've definitely played games that are surprising, I suppose. But I don't think anything really catches me off guard nowadays. Like, I just think the games and community has just expanded so much that I don't know if I'm ever that surprised. So I guess in terms of surprise of disappointment, the Titanfall 2 beta was the most disappointing game I've ever played, and I hate that game. I love Titanfall 1, but to me the Titanfall beta just completely ripped the soul out of Titanfall 1 and just made this like not good imitation of Call of Duty. And even though they tried to fix it and people gave feedback, and now people love that game, which I just don't get at all. To me, like Titanfall 2, like I did try the full game when it came out, and the campaign was fun, but the multiplayer to me had just been destroyed. They've just the map design, like the way the map design, the mode design, the way AIs were, they just destroyed what I loved about the original. To the point where I just think that game's terrible. I just hate it. Like, is it the worst game? Absolutely not. There's way worse games. There's way worse Call of Duty games than Titanfall 2. I just can't get into it in the slightest. It was like, I was upset playing that beta. I just turned it off and I was like, how could something I love so much be this soulless nothing? Like, how can they just came along and killed it? I hate it so much. I guess in terms of more positive, I don't know. I mean, Spiritfarer was really, really good. Like, that's my favorite indie game of all time. Incredible video game. Like a real 10 out of 10. Would highly recommend. So I guess that was surprising, as in I didn't expect to like it so much. I don't think I was really surprised in terms of the content. And I think that's what I'm thinking of at the moment. Like, what game surprised me in terms of the content itself and what the game was all about? I don't think that happens that much anymore. I just think that I'm just a bit burnt out. Maybe I'm just old. I don't know. But I guess I'll go Spiritfarer just because I didn't expect to like that game as much as I did. But I really like how it looked. I really like the music. I really like the gameplay. It was super addictive. It was super fun. It just got everything right. Fantastic video game. I would highly recommend it. Right, I don't know if I'm going to answer this one. This one seems like a bit of a bad egg, this next question, but I guess I'll give it a go. Some guy called Muckluck, he asks, having been making YouTube videos over a long period of time, is there anything that stands out to you since returning from your break about the way YouTube, its content and its audience, including you, has changed over time? How has that changed the way you make videos and what do you see happening in the future? Oh, and something Jackie Chan Adventures. Okay, cool. Yeah, this is a weird one because it's definitely massively changed. And coming back, I definitely had to rethink in terms of what content I was going to make. Now, I've already talked about Let's Plays and how I don't really want to do those anymore. But the reason for that wasn't necessarily because of content has changed, even though that's true and Let's Plays are not as desirable anymore. But because I just didn't want to go backwards. But even then, like from a YouTube point of view, yeah, Let's Plays are not the best. What happened over these last few years with Let's Plays is that I think two main things happened with Let's Plays. Well, maybe, no, three. Three things happened with Let's Plays. The first is that the top YouTubers just completely dominated that segment. Or completely dominated Let's Plays. Like, people still put out videos, but what happened is that the top YouTubers who were making a ton of money off this stuff and were doing this full time and had the capability of doing this stuff was just jumping on any new game and just hammering out videos as quickly as possible, which meant that it completely killed any sort of competition that you could do with that. Not that I would be looking to put out a Let's Play and have it be like a massive video, but it just completely chopped off like anything below. So yes, you can do Let's Plays of any game you want, and that's great. But over the first like 5 or 10 years, let's say 10, I guess, of when Let's Playing was a thing, all of the games that people care about got covered to death. Like if you search Let's Play Super Mario Sunshine or something, there's so many videos of that to the point where like, sure, you could make a Let's Play Super Mario Sunshine video, but who cares? Like, it just doesn't seem viable. So yes, you can do it, but you need like a hook outside of that. And you just being a Let's Player, you don't have a hook outside of that for the most part. So that it got so saturated in terms of the main games that people wanted to cover. And then the top YouTubers completely destroyed the market by dominating it so much and almost creating a monopoly to the point where it's like, well, if you're someone who wants to do Let's Plays, well, how are you meant to do that now? Like, you can't do it as just a normal video of the games you want to do because it's going to get buried. And then you can't really do it as like top content because it's going to get buried like for a different reason. You can't do modern games. Again, I'm not saying it's not viable at all. It's just not that viable really. And you need something else on top of it. Like, you need that extra edge, and getting that edge is extremely, extremely difficult. So it's just not viable. The second thing that happened was Twitch and streaming became easier, right? So if you can't get views on Let's Plays, but you still just want to hang out and play games, now you can just stream it. And then the third thing is the algorithm. Like, your Let's Play of Final Fantasy X, you know, the 40th part of that Let's Play, like, who cares? Like, again, it's just not going to do anything. You might enjoy making it, and I'm not going to tell anyone to not make that, but like, it's not going to do anything ever. Like, the algorithm kind of dictated that this long form content in terms of these series where you need to watch like 20 parts for a video to make sense, that content doesn't make sense for people because it just doesn't fit in with how YouTube is. So I think in terms of the big change in YouTube, with Google buying them and them being more analytics driven and algorithm, you know, using this algorithm, engagement and clicking on the videos is king in a way that it didn't used to be. The way it kind of used to be, I would say, is that, you know, you had a few different ways that people could find your content. It was quite limited, but you had ways that people could do that. So when you had your subscribers and people could find you that way, and that was extremely important, that you were going to upload something and that a load of people would see in their feed and click on it, And then outside of that, it was just like people recommending it outside of YouTube. It was someone searches for a video or type of video, and you just kind of, if what you made matches what they're searching, then it's going to come up and they're going to click on it. Which is why back in the day, you kind of wanted to find games that people weren't doing, because if you were doing a popular series, yeah, someone's going to search Let's Play Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, and your video is going to be like 200th in the list. So if you kind of find a game that was a little bit more interesting, then that would come up. And that was kind of it. Like, there was recommendations, but it was super basic. So it was actually in a lot of ways very difficult to get big on YouTube. It always has been. But even back then, the avenues were quite small. So you had to just build it, over time. Nowadays, it's all about individual videos is king. Like, it's all about that one video that YouTube can push. And it's all about recommendations. It's all about the algorithm, because it's all about individual videos. So in some ways, I think the algorithm has helped me out as a smaller YouTuber making this ranking every Simpsons game series, because I think the algorithm to a certain extent has recognized that we can push this content and we can push it out to people because it stands on its own. It's, I guess, a topic people like. Not these videos haven't exploded, by the way, but these videos that I'm making get way more views than my old ones because of the algorithm, because nowadays it's all about recommendations and it being pushed. Where back in the day, I would have made this series and I would have been relying on my subscribers and people actually searching Simpsons games and then going through. Because even if you use the search, and I hate this personally, but when you use the search on YouTube, it ranks them based on order of that it thinks you're going to click it. It is not trying to show you something that accurately matches what you've searched. It's trying to push something that you're more likely to click on, which is why it shows the most popular stuff at the top and somewhat related stuff to what you've searched, and then it just goes rogue and it just shows you whatever. Like, it just goes crazy in terms of the stuff that it shows you, because I guess they've figured out that ultimately, even if you're searching for something else, people will just see something, oh, that video looks interesting, and will click on it, even if it has nothing to do with what you've searched. Because it's all about just shoving something in your face that you will click on. So if you have a video that ticks that box, or the algorithm thinks you're ticking that box for people, then it will push it. So in terms of like the content you make, it's kind of less about quality, which is always kind of been the case, but really there's like a huge hurdle before you even get to the quality of the video. It's about the thumbnail, it's about the concept of the video, it's about the topic and how it relates to other topics. It's all these other things first, because the massive obstacle to get over is someone actually clicking and giving your video a go. Now, the quality does matter, because if it's a good video that people watch and properly enjoy, then I think that does get recognized and it gets pushed. But really, it doesn't matter that much. like that's secondary, how good the video is. And obviously a good video means more people watch it, so it does snowball, but it's second to, I think, concept and idea and the engagement and the appeal of the video itself. That's king. So it's just something you kind of have to keep in mind. So I try not to worry too much about that stuff. I definitely would never make like a part 40 of a series or whatever, right? So I think in terms of the series I'm making at the moment, ranking every Simpsons game, I definitely did consider the algorithm. And I think it didn't really change my videos at all. I think the way I make these videos would be the exact same, but in terms of the presentation of them, it is a bit different because it's part of a series, but you can totally click on any of these by themselves. Like if you just want to hear my thoughts or somebody's thoughts on Bart's Nightmare, you can just click on that video. Like, yes, it's the 8th video in a series, but you can just watch it if you want. But also, if you watch the series, it makes a bit more sense, but it's not like a requirement. So maybe back in the day, it would have made more sense to be like, oh, ranking every Simpsons games part 8 - Bart's Nightmare, right? Like that might have been what the title would have been. But now that doesn't make sense. So you put Bart's Nightmare at the front, so that's the main thing. You want to watch a video on Bart's Nightmare? Here's a video on Bart's Nightmare. And then if you enjoy that video, oh, here's another video in the ranking every Simpsons game series. So I don't think it's massively changed how I make the series, but there's definitely some consideration in terms of how it's presented. And, you know, another big thing about YouTube is like, oh, you've got to make standalone content that people can then watch more of if they like the original video. So for me, my series ticks that box, what also still allows me to focus on the series and what I'm actually kind of passionate and interested in, which is going through all these games one by one. In terms of how I see it going in the future, I don't know. I think with the algorithm, there is a bit of back and forth. Like, people like to think the algorithm is dictating everything. And to a certain extent it is. But also, the algorithm also reacts to how people react to content. So content will probably change, but the algorithm will simply change to match those habits. So there's a bit of the algorithm steering people in a certain direction, but also I think people do steer the algorithm as well. In terms of, I guess, content itself, I think the individual engagement stuff is so strong that is just never going to go away. So at the moment, subscriber count matters, but subscribers as a system doesn't matter that much. It's part of the reasons why I don't ask people to subscribe. I definitely do like it when people subscribe, so please do subscribe if you want to. But ultimately, if you've watched like 5 of my videos and watched them through to the end, when I upload a new video, YouTube is going to tell you about it. Like, you don't have to be subscribed to me to get recommended my new videos, because the algorithm looks at what I upload or what you watched, and then it looks that I've uploaded something new, and then it puts together that, oh, this person would like this new content of this person that they've previously watched. So I think the individual stuff is going to keep going and going, and you see that in terms of the big videos as well. It's all about these big, long video essays, all these big deep dives, and that's the stuff that gets really, really pushed. It's kind of a shame though that YouTube also still has this like reactionary narrative like nonsense. Like, there was a video recommended on the side of one of the videos I was watching, which is like, Mr. Beast just made his last mistake. And then the thumbnail was his picture and it's like, it's over. And it's just like, shut the hell up. Like, it's just, that's something I wish would go away on YouTube. Like, YouTube is a business, and there is a lot of content creators that are just all about aggressively clickbait, aggressively creating these narratives. A game can't come out and just be okay, right? A film can't come out and just be all right. And it can't be like, oh, it's in an okay state. No. It comes out and it's the best thing ever. And then suddenly something goes wrong. Oh, what have they done? It's destroyed. It's over. I can't believe it. And then they're like, it's all about these crappy, awful narratives. And unfortunately, I hope that goes away. I don't think it will. Because again, it ticks the box of this standalone content. If you're someone who likes that type of game, that type of like media, and someone's making these standalone, decently produced videos about it, it's going to get shoved in your face. But oh, they're just terrible. Like, don't believe the narrative that these YouTubers tell you, because it's money. They just exaggerate and make stuff up. Doesn't matter if it's true. Doesn't matter if it's half-hearted. I do think the video essay war is kind of done though. Not as in like video essays are going to go away. I think they're still going to be a very important part, because people seem to just click on them a lot and then just watch them all. I know I do. Like, the fact that video essays have found a way to make people watch these stupidly long videos and just have it in the background, I think that's going to continue. And I think there is going to be a it recognizes the fact that people, in terms of consuming content, do not directly consume content and haven't done for a number of years. It is not like a TV show where you sit down and everyone's watching the same thing and that's where all your attention is. Like, when you watch a video essay, it's content you don't have to fully watch. You just dive in and out. So I think this standalone, engaging, interesting concept, long form videos, that's probably going to be it. I think it's going to keep leaning in that direction. Although it's still going to be analytics based. So if that changes, it changes and they'll change with it. But I think it's an interesting one, because you can argue people's like attention spans have gone down, but people's attention spans going down has made the content longer. Like, that's how it's happened. Like, that's what... Anyway, all right, I think I've rambled about YouTube enough. yeah, again, hopefully that's covered everything. I did talk for a while there, but thanks for the question. All right. Last, but certainly not least, we have Nope McGee, and he asks, a lot of reviews I watch don't have that much to say about the games they review. How would you recommend someone expand their language to allow them to make longer videos? That's interesting that you phrase it that way, to be honest. I have had to think about this one as well, like some of the other questions, where I guess what you're kind of asking is, yeah, you're asking how does someone make their videos longer, but I think it's interesting that you ask about expanding their language, because I guess I would recommend that it's not really about expanding your language, right? Like, I wouldn't say my script skills are very good or my writing's very good, but even then when you watch other people, they're like rambling, like they repeat points. There's definitely a lot of using the same words. So I guess I wouldn't really or using the same description words. So I wouldn't really worry too much about expanding your language. And I guess my best advice in terms of if your videos are kind of short and you want to make your videos longer, the first thing you got to look at is structure. How are you structuring your videos? How are you structuring your script? And is that actually restricting or not restricting the length of your video? So I guess for me, I have a specific structure that I use for ranking every Simpsons game. And that dictates how long the videos are. So the structure is like, I talk about, maybe I'll make a random point about the game or intro the game. And then I talk about the history around the game and what's going on with the Simpsons game at the time. Then we go like first impressions, and then I take you through level 1, 2, and 3, take you through the entire game, while also making points about the game generally speaking as appropriate. And then I get to the end and I give a summary about the game, rank the game, and then I talk about any ports, which is just giving a history of the port, very brief, and then a summary of the port, then I rank the port, and then I give like an overall summary at the end, and then there we go, that's the video. So by having that structure, I don't really have to make my videos long. I simply write to that structure that makes the most sense to me, and the videos naturally come to about 40 minutes. It just takes me 40 minutes to cover all of those points in order to set up the game and to make all the points I want to make, in order to cover every level, in order to make the more high level points about the game, in order to rank it, in order to look at the ports. I just very naturally, due to that structure, write that long. I don't have to stress about how long it is. I write what I write, and it just happens to be 40 minutes. I don't aim for that at all. So that's what I would kind of be looking at. I feel like some reviewers, maybe this is more of an old school thing. It's probably not a problem anymore, but I think some people end up writing shorter ones because they have a too strict structure. It's like the old school game reviews, right? Where you would have like an IGN being like, let's talk about the story, and let's talk about the music, let's talk about the gameplay. And they would have these like very strict, like high level things and aspects about the game they would talk about. But when you look back on it, it's bloody nonsense. Like, why do you have to talk about the story of Mario? Like, why does every game need an audio section? Like, and why, like, some of that stuff was just complete nonsense. They needed a structure for them that could cover every single game, because they were giving general commercial or consumer advice. But reviews on YouTube aren't consumer advice. They're just not. They don't need to be, or they shouldn't be, really. The strength of the platform is that you just get to talk about games in whatever way you want to talk about. And so one of the reasons why I guess someone's video might be short is because they have a too strict of a structure, where they just have a checklist of very basic high-level things. They give a very high-level opinion on it. And then naturally, that's 10 minutes. Okay, cool. So I would kind of look at that stuff, I suppose, your overall structure of it. You don't necessarily need a strict structure. Like, from my point of view, like, if I'm going to talk about something more generally in the Simpsons video, then I'm just going to do it. Like, I'm not going to stress too much about it. But for some people, they might have no structure and they're really struggling to write, so they just ramble on for a bit and then it ends. So maybe some people need a little bit of structure there and kind of think about what points do you want to make? Like, what are your, rather than being like, let's talk about the story, let's talk about this, and these very broad points, maybe you would look at the video or the game you're looking at and just break it up in a different way. Maybe break it up like I do and go through it level by level. maybe there's actually more high level points you want to make about the game that doesn't fit into this nice story and graphics and presentation structure. Maybe you just want to talk about these broad things and just let yourself go off from there. So I would kind of look at that stuff, because sometimes structure can give you more freedom. If you have a structure that's too strict, then it's going to be very restricting, obviously. But sometimes some people just need more freedom to write. So a looser structure will mean that they don't have to worry too much about it and they can just write in free flow. And then some people who, you give them a blank page, it's very difficult to write. So putting together some sort of structure will allow them to write as well. And if you expand that out enough and practice enough, then you should get longer videos. If that's your goal though, for me, I don't really care about the length of the videos. I want them to, they're the length they are because that's how much I want to talk about it. Which I guess goes on to my final point about this, which is you got to be passionate about it. You got to be interested in what you're talking about. Like back in the day when I did game reviews, some of my game reviews, I just honestly looking back, just didn't care that much. Just don't care that much. Like I would think it would be a good game to review. I would play through it, then I wouldn't really have that much to say. I just didn't have much to say about it, but I would still do the review anyway. So it's not really a good way to do things. Again, I think for something like an IGN, right, they have to review these games. So they have to have a structure that it all fits in. That means that the most interesting games, they can write a big review easily. But the most, games that aren't as interesting, they still have to write a review and they need a way of doing that. So that's when that makes sense. But yeah, so I kind of struggled with that back in the day because I just wasn't that passionate about it. So part of why I can make these Simpsons videos and they are the length that they are is because I care. Like I'm just interested and I can add in stuff that I know, I can do research and then add that into the video as well. Like I'm passionate about it, I would say. So I guess those would be my 2 recommendations. Look at your structure. I don't know if you're asking for yourself. I'm not too sure. I think worry less about language. I think that's very much a part 2 in terms of improving videos. The first thing you should do is make sure you're tackling something you're interested in and passionate about, because then writing about it will be easier. And then also look at the structure of your videos. Is it too restrictive? Is it not restrictive? Is it not giving you a framework that you desperately need? Start looking at that. And then of course you just watch other people's videos and just copy them because it's easier. Hey! No, don't do that. But yeah, so hopefully that helps. Okay, so this ended up being way over an hour. I would apologize, but this has been really fun. Yeah, I hope everyone has enjoyed the answers to their questions. I will once again say thank you very much to everyone who asked a question. It's massively flattering. And of course, thank you to everyone who watches. It's been a pretty crazy year doing these Simpsons videos. I think I've got so many amazing comments from people just saying the nicest things. Just people checking out your content, like new people, and just saying this is great. It's just so amazing to read. Spend all this time on a video and then to put it out there and to have people check it out and be like, this is great. Even when the views aren't there, not all the videos get a ton of views, but even then the people who do watch it enjoy it. And for me, that's the most important thing. Are the people who check out the video having a good time? People seem to like them. I seem to like making them. And I've just got some of the most amazing comments I've ever received on YouTube since making this series. So that has been really amazing. I hope people look forward to more. I'm going to keep making this series. We are going to rank them all. I want to rank them all. Yeah, so I just want to say another massive thank you to everyone who watches the videos, anyone who watched this. That's also very flattering. All of the old people, all of my old subscribers who are stuck around, all the new subscribers who are now enjoying the new stuff. You're all amazing. It's really, really cool to be back on YouTube. I'm really enjoying this series. It's amazing that other people are as well. And I'm really looking forward to covering all the Simpsons games and having this series that I'm super proud of. So yeah, I guess I'll see you for Bart and the Beanstalk. I beat that game today. I'm writing the script. I was writing the script before this actually as well, while watching Taskmaster. So that's going to come. I think that's going to be another 40-minute video, which I don't know. I was talking about structure before. I don't know how that's happened. I have a lot to say about Bart and the Beanstalk. Who knew? I didn't. But anyway, yes, one last thank you. You're all amazing, and I'll see you for the next ranking every Simpsons game video.